Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I used to believe that when a marriage cracks, you hear it, a sudden noise, a clean break, something unmistakable. But the truth is, it's more like watching a rope fray strand by strand. You don't even notice it at first. One thread snaps, then another, and by the time the whole thing gives out, it's too late to fix it. That's exactly how it started with Amelia. There wasn't one moment that told me something was wrong. It was a slow drift, like the way your eyes get used to the dark. I remember the little things, the way she used to touch my arm when she passed behind me in the kitchen, how she'd smile with her whole face when she saw me at the door. That warmth didn't disappear overnight. It just faded. It began with jokes, mostly. At dinner with friends, she'd make comments, seemingly harmless, but with an edge sharp enough to draw blood. "Oh, Daniel doesn't do romantic," she said one night with a chuckle that lingered a little too long. "Unless you count reheating leftovers as foreplay." Everyone laughed, and I forced a smile, but I caught the look from our friend Jason, that glance that says, "Is she serious?" I told myself I was imagining it. She was just tired. Work stress, maybe. It wasn't until the jabs turned cold that I started to worry. I'd reach for her hand in bed, and she'd flinch like I was waking her from a bad dream. She started turning in earlier and waking up before me, already dressed, makeup done. Morning meetings, she said, even on days she worked remotely. I began noticing how she always took her phone into the bathroom. Always on silent. Always face down. But the worst part? She stopped looking at me. It sounds like nothing, right? But it's everything. When someone stops really seeing you, it doesn't matter how loud you speak. They've already tuned you out. I'd say something, ask how her day was, and she'd answer in these bland, autopilot phrases. Fine. Same old. You know how it is. Except I didn't. Not anymore. I started staying late at work. At first, I told myself it was to give her space. Then I realized I just didn't want to come home. I'd sit in my car outside the building, watching the amber streetlights cast long shadows on the pavement, wondering what version of her I'd walk into when I opened the door. Then came our anniversary. 7 years. Not a lifetime, but not nothing either. I booked us a reservation at a cozy Italian place, the same one we went on our first date. I left the card on the counter a week before, said nothing, waited for her to bring it up. She didn't. On the morning of, I made her coffee like always, slid the cup across the table. She glanced at it, said, "Can you not use the hazelnut creamer next time? It makes me nauseous." I stared at her. "Happy anniversary," I said. She blinked. "Oh, right." That night, she claimed she was too tired to go out. "Can we just stay in? Maybe another time." No kiss. No gift. She fell asleep with her back turned. I sat on the couch for 2 hours after that, staring at the flickering TV screen, not watching anything. But here's the thing. That wasn't the moment I broke. The moment came a week later, at a friend's gallery event downtown. Amelia had always loved those things, minimalist spaces with abstract art and overpriced wine. I wasn't particularly interested, but she insisted I come. I think she wanted to prove something. To me? To herself? I don't know. She wore a new dress, sleek, low-cut, black. She hadn't dressed like that for me in months. And yet, when we got there, she practically drifted away the moment we stepped through the door, laughing too loudly. Lingering touches on the arm of some guy I didn't recognize. I stood by the buffet like a decorative plant, sipping lukewarm Chardonnay while watching her shine for everyone but me. Later that evening, someone finally introduced him. Lucas. Amelia's business consultant, they said. Tall, confident, maybe 5 years younger than me. They exchanged a glance like they shared an inside joke. "Daniel," he said, offering a handshake. I took it. Firmly. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Neither did mine. When I looked back at Amelia, she wasn't smiling. Not exactly. It was that twisted kind of smirk, the kind you wear when you know you've got the upper hand and you're just waiting to use it. I didn't say anything. Not that night. Not the next morning. But something snapped in me then, not with rage, with clarity. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about me. And I was done being the quiet, patient man she thought she could dismiss. After that night at the gallery, I stopped guessing and started watching. For weeks, I played the role she had assigned me, the dull, dependable husband. I didn't ask questions, didn't accuse. I just paid attention, closely, quietly, the way you do when you know the forest is full of predators, and you're trying not to make a sound. Her habits became predictable. That's what happens when people get comfortable in betrayal. They forget to cover their tracks. Mondays and Thursdays, always late. Strategy meetings. Tuesdays, she worked from home but took suspiciously long lunch breaks. She started locking her laptop, changed her phone passcode, told me I was being neurotic when I asked why. I didn't press. Instead, I started documenting. It wasn't hard. I remembered the advice of an old coworker who went through something similar: don't confront until you've already won. I dug through the bank account first. Nothing drastic, but her credit card statements were telling. Upscale lunch spots. A boutique hotel downtown billed under a different name. Once, a florist. I installed a tracker on her car. Not something I'm proud of, but I wasn't playing honorably anymore. That Wednesday, while she told me she was headed to a client dinner, I watched her location ping 2 blocks away from a boutique hotel near 10th and Park. I sat in my car across the street and waited. At 6:42 p.m., her car pulled in. At 6:46, Lucas arrived. They didn't leave until nearly 10. The next morning, she left the house humming. She actually hummed. Like a teenager sneaking in past curfew, giddy with the thrill of getting away with something. That was the last day I made her coffee. I didn't say a word. I just let the silence between us grow long and brittle. By Friday, she stopped even pretending to care. She was always texting, always somewhere else, in her head, in someone else's bed. I didn't care. What mattered now was the plan. Because I wasn't going to beg for answers. I wasn't going to rage, or plead, or fall apart. I had done enough sacrificing for this marriage. She made her choice. I was about to make mine. The first move came from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Michelle. We had history, the kind you don't talk about in polite company. We met back in college, dated briefly, then went our separate ways when life split us down different paths. But fate, or something sharper, had her cross my radar again. She was now a partner at a boutique PR firm downtown. I found her name while reading an article on high-profile image turnarounds. That, combined with a scroll through her Instagram, sharp suits, red heels, and unreadable expression confirmed it. She had leveled up. I sent her a message on LinkedIn. We haven't spoken in a long time, but I could use someone with your particular talents for something personal. Coffee. She replied 10 minutes later. Meet me at Felix on 9th, Sunday, noon. We're something decent. When we met, it was like walking into a different lifetime. Michelle was still radiant, but now there was steel beneath the smile. She listened as I laid it all out, the affair, the disinterest, the public embarrassment. I told her I didn't want revenge. I wanted control. I wanted to walk into that same world where Amelia had mocked me and show them exactly what she'd thrown away. Michelle's eyes gleamed. So, you don't want to win her back. You want to walk past her like she's invisible. I nodded. Exactly. She leaned in. Good. Because you were always too soft. Let's fix that. And just like that, we started planning. Michelle became more than an ally. She was an operator. Within days, she had me booked for a discreet grooming overhaul, wardrobe, haircut, posture work. Apparently, the way you carry pain in your shoulders makes you look 10 years older. She introduced me to a friend of hers, Maya, an elegant, multilingual brand consultant who ran in elite circles and happened to owe Michelle a favor. Maya wasn't just beautiful, she was magnetic. A quiet presence with sharp wit and the kind of smile that could melt cameras. We had dinner once. Then again. And again. I told her everything. Not in the pathetic way you might expect. Just honestly. To my surprise, she didn't flinch. Let me guess, she said one night, sipping wine across from me. Your wife thinks you're boring, predictable. She wanted drama and fireworks. She got Lucas, I said dryly. She laughed. Poor girl. I didn't know what Maya and I were. I wasn't rushing to define it, but what we shared felt undeniable. Genuine. A woman like her, choosing to be seen with me, walk beside me, it meant something. It reminded me I hadn't been the problem. By the end of that week, I had all the evidence I needed. Tracker logs, hotel receipts, screenshots. I wasn't going to use them in court. I didn't care about a messy divorce. What I wanted was leverage, not legal, emotional. And the perfect opportunity came faster than I imagined. Amelia was invited to a private event, a fundraising gala hosted by one of her clients. She brought it up casually over dinner one night, not even looking at me. You don't have to come. It's formal, and you hate these things anyway. I looked at her across the table and smiled, slow and calm. I'll be there. She raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. I watched her walk away from the table, smug, already imagining how she'd play the scene. A vision in black silk, on the arm of Lucas, flaunting her new life while I stood in the corner like a discarded afterthought. She didn't know I wouldn't be coming alone. The night of the gala came faster than I expected. But not for her. Amelia had been glowing for days. That artificial kind of glow that doesn't come from love or peace, but from the thrill of control. She was in full performance mode. New dress, new shoes, a fresh ballet appointment that she raved about to our mutual friends as if I wasn't even in the room. Everything about her buzzed with anticipation, for the compliments, the attention, the whispers. It didn't matter that I already knew what was going to happen. She had no idea that I did. I played my part. Quiet, unbothered. I let her believe she'd caught me in her storm, helpless to do anything but orbit around her gravity. I knew she thought she was the main character. That's the thing about people like her. They never notice when the script changes. That afternoon, I left work early and drove straight to Maya's place. When she opened the door, she looked up from her earrings with a slow grin. "Tell me again," she said, tilting her head, "why I'm crashing your wife's fantasy evening." I smiled, pulling my tie tighter in the hallway mirror. "You're not crashing anything. You're redefining it." She laughed softly, then stepped forward and adjusted my collar with both hands. "Good, because I'd hate to waste this dress on anything less than total cinematic irony." Maya wore a deep navy satin gown that seemed to both reflect and absorb the light, depending on where she stood. Nothing too flashy, just elegant, devastating, and absolutely unforgettable. She had the kind of presence that made people pause mid-sentence without realizing why. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about poise, about power, about walking into the room like I had never been broken. When we arrived at the venue, Maya's hand slipped through my arm like it had always belonged there. I felt her fingers press lightly against my wrist. A simple signal. You're not alone. The ballroom was already packed. Soft jazz, champagne flutes, clusters of polished smiles and designer suits. And then there she was, Amelia. She hadn't seen me yet. She was standing near the grand piano with Lucas, who looked like he'd spent more time on his hair than his tie. His suit screamed, "I want to be important," while Amelia's dress whispered, "Look what you lost." They made a good pair, visually, anyway. He had one hand on her back. She was smiling just wide enough to show the room she had won. Until she turned and saw us. It was almost imperceptible, the way her posture changed. Her eyes landed on me, and then froze on Maya. The expression on her face didn't shift right away. She blinked once, then again, as if trying to adjust her perception. She didn't recognize Maya, but that didn't matter. She felt her. I didn't look away. I held Amelia's gaze as we crossed the room. Not with spite, just calm, like I had nothing left to fear from her. I watched her lips part slightly. Then she turned to Lucas, murmured something, and tried to stand taller. Her expression tightened. She was recalibrating, searching for a weakness in me to exploit. And she was failing. We made polite rounds. People I hadn't seen in years came up and reintroduced themselves. They congratulated me on this stunning company, and Maya handled it with grace, offering the kind of warm, distant charm that made her feel untouchable. Even Jason, the same friend who once gave me that pitted glance across the dinner table, came up to shake my hand. "Good to see you, man. You look different." I smiled. "Thanks. I feel different." It wasn't long before Amelia made her way over. She couldn't help herself. "Daniel," she said, voice bright but strained. "You came after all." I said I would. Her eyes flicked to Maya and back. "And you brought." "This is Maya," I said, turning slightly. "A friend. And a hell of a lot more interesting than a gallery opening." Maya smiled. "Pleasure." Amelia's response was polite, barely. She extended her hand, but her eyes were darting, assessing, trying to find a crack she could slip a knife into. She looked me up and down, then turned to Maya. "So, how long have you two known each other?" Maya didn't blink. "Long enough to tell when someone's lost something valuable and doesn't realize it until it's already gone." There it was. A clean hit, wrapped in silk. Lucas appeared behind Amelia like a confused accessory. He held out his hand to me. "Daniel, we've met before, I think." "Lucas," I said, giving him the kind of handshake that ends conversations. "Yes." Briefly, I watched as his smile faded half a second before he realized it had. Amelia tried to shift the focus, talking too loudly, looping Maya into questions about work, about art, about where she was from. Maya answered coolly, each response turning the air just a little colder. It was subtle, but the people around us began to notice. The power dynamic shifted. The room began orbiting differently. She tried to humiliate me with presents. I arrived with grace. And grace always wins. What Amelia didn't know, not yet, was that I hadn't come just to show her I'd moved on. I had come to show her who she'd become. Amelia didn't crumble right away. She smiled through the tension, played gracious hostess, laughed a little too loud at things no one else found funny. But her eyes betrayed her. That polished social mask of hers, the one she'd worn like armor for years, was starting to slip. Lucas stayed close to her side, but even he looked uncomfortable now. Maya didn't even need to speak anymore. Her mere presence beside me was enough. She wasn't flirtatious. She wasn't trying to make a point. She was simply undeniable. And that's what made it unbearable for Amelia. She'd walked into that ballroom expecting to be the one everyone noticed. She'd planned it down to the last detail, her dress, her smile, even the subtle touches she'd used to flaunt Lucas in front of me. She wanted whispers. She wanted spectacle. What she didn't expect was to become the spectacle for all the wrong reasons. "Can I talk to you?" she asked suddenly, pulling me aside near the back wall, just out of earshot from the main crowd. I followed without hesitation. Maya gave me a slight nod. She knew this was part of it. Amelia turned to me, arms crossed, jaw tight. "Who is she?" "A friend," I said simply. "Don't insult me, Daniel." "All right. She's someone who listens and respects me and doesn't treat me like a placeholder." Her lips tightened. "So this is what? Revenge? You think parading some socialite around makes you look better?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence said enough. She stepped closer. "You think people don't talk? They're saying you're trying too hard. That it's pathetic. That she's just a prop." That was her play, desperation cloaked in disdain. The same tactic she'd used for years. Devalue. Undermine. Make me question my worth so she wouldn't have to question her own. But I didn't bite. "Amelia," I said softly, "do you even hear yourself?" Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. "I came here tonight because you wanted a stage. So here we are. Let's talk about the real story. Let's talk about Lucas." Her posture stiffened. "What about him?" I pulled my phone from my inner jacket pocket, opened a folder marked Tuesday and Thursday, and held the screen up. Hotel receipts. Check-in timestamps. Location pings. A neat little timeline. She went pale. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't look around for an audience. I just let the facts sit in the space between us like spilled red wine on a white tablecloth. "I'm not showing these to anyone," I said. "This isn't about ruining you, Amelia. This is about ending the lie." Her hands trembled slightly. "You tracked me?" I raised an eyebrow. "No. I tracked patterns. The truth always has a rhythm. You just forgot yours." She didn't respond. So I added, "The funniest part? I'm not even angry anymore. I just don't care. You're not the person I married. And honestly, I'm not the man who would have tolerated this either." Behind her, I saw Lucas approaching. Oblivious. Out of place. Trying to insert himself into a conversation that had nothing to do with him. "Everything okay here?" he asked, with that practiced smile of someone who never actually reads the room. Amelia turned to him sharply, eyes wide. "Just give me a second." "No need," I said. "We're finished." And with that, I turned and walked away, back toward the golden-lit ballroom, back toward Maya, who was standing near the gallery wall, talking with three guests who now looked more interested in her than the art behind them. She glanced over her shoulder and smiled when she saw me returning. I didn't have to say a word. She reached for my arm, and we rejoined the room like nothing had happened at all. But something had. Because when Amelia returned minutes later, alone, visibly shaken, the temperature in the room had changed. People noticed. The host greeted Maya warmly. A local columnist requested a photo. I watched from the corner of my eye as Lucas whispered something to Amelia, and she snapped at him before realizing people were watching. The performance was unraveling. She had tried to humiliate me, but she did something worse to herself. She exposed who she truly was, not through scandal or screaming or drama, through the quiet collapse of her carefully curated image. And I didn't have to destroy her. She did it all on her own. She didn't leave immediately. That surprised me. Amelia stayed, hovering near the bar like a misplaced centerpiece no one remembered ordering. Her posture was still upright, but her eyes flicked too often around the room, scanning for something: attention, rescue, maybe control. But no one was watching her anymore. That spotlight she craved? Gone. It didn't disappear with a bang, just flickered out. Lucas stood beside her for a while, stiff and quiet. Then, eventually, he wandered off to talk to someone who seemed more impressed with his charm than she did. I wondered if they'd last a week. A month. Maybe. Not my problem. I caught glimpses of her occasionally, pretending to laugh, pretending to care. But her energy was fractured now. That subtle confidence she always carried, the one she used like a scalpel to cut people down without leaving visible wounds, it had vanished. Maya and I mingled through the rest of the evening with ease. We weren't overly affectionate. We didn't need to be. There's a quiet power in being at peace. It draws attention, but it doesn't demand it. The conversations felt effortless, the laughter real. As the evening wound down, I stepped onto the balcony for a breath of fresh air. The city stretched below, alive, impersonal, endless. For the first time in months, I felt like I could actually breathe again. Amelia followed me out a few minutes later. I didn't acknowledge her right away. Just kept looking at the skyline. The wind tugged at her dress as she came to stand beside me, and for a second, neither of us said anything. Then she spoke. You really set me up tonight. I turned slightly. No. You set yourself up. She stared at the city like it might offer her a better answer than I could. I didn't think you had it in you. I smiled faintly. That's because you stopped seeing me a long time ago. She flinched. I never hated you, Amelia. I just hated who you turned into. I stayed too long, hoping the version of you I loved would come back. But she's gone. And so am I. She swallowed hard. Is she your girlfriend? I glanced through the window. Maya was chatting with two older couples, completely at ease, the embodiment of grace. No, I said honestly. She's not mine. I'm not looking to own people anymore. I'm just surrounding myself with ones who see value and return it. Silence. You know I didn't plan for this, Amelia whispered, almost more to herself than to me. It wasn't supposed to end this way. It didn't have to, I said quietly. You just didn't think I'd ever stop waiting for you to notice me. She looked down at the floor. So this is it? Yeah, I said. This is it. I left her there on the balcony, alone with the truth. Inside, I walked up to Maya, who gave me a look, a simple question in her eyes. I nodded. She smiled and slipped her arm through mine as we made our way to the door. We didn't say goodbye to Amelia. We didn't have to. As we left, I passed a mirror near the entrance, one of those oversized decorative pieces that seem to exist only for ego checks. I caught a glimpse of myself in it. Not the broken version I'd been a few months ago. Not the invisible man at gallery dinners or cold breakfasts. This man stood taller, straighter, lighter. And then I saw her reflection behind me. Alone. Watching. Diminished. She had come to that gala to remind me of what I'd lost. Instead, she realized too late what she had thrown away. And I didn't just walk out with someone captivating. I walked out with something better, myself.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.